Hello everyone and welcome back to the Law with Charlie YouTube channel. In this video I am going to be discussing the social media bans which Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, announced on the morning of the 15th of June 2026, and I'm currently recording this in the evening of the same day, the 15th of June 2026. In this video, I will be considering many of the trending search terms and what people want to and need to know. I'm going to also be going through some of my opinions in terms of the social media ban, and I'm going to be covering loads of different areas of law as well. And this won't be my only video on this topic. I will also be doing more videos on this topic, including expanding on some of these areas in much more detail, because here I go into reasonable detail. I go into detail more in some areas than I do others. And so I'm just going to go and see how we do. Anything I don't manage to cover as fully as I would like, we can always come back to it in another video. So, some of the key things which A have been searched and B that will be covered in this video are the questions of how will the social media ban work? How will the UK social media ban work? How will the ban on social media work? How will social media ban work? So very much the same variation of the same thing. One of the other key terms, will Keir Starmer ban social media for under 16s? The answer to that is yes. Keir Starmer has announced a ban of social media for under 16s. It's not Keir Starmer himself who is personally banning under 16s from social media, but more the government he is leading. So there's lots to cover in this topic. It's great. And one key question is, how will the social media ban actually be enforced? And that's something, again, I will go into in much more detail. But before I go any further, you may or may not disagree with the ban. I know there's definitely a large proportion of individuals out there who do not agree with the social media ban. That's been made evident by two particular search terms, namely "Do not ban social media for under 16 petition" and "social media ban petition." I will not be sharing my thoughts on such petitions in this video, although I may well do a video of sorts covering those topics in a later video. So, I'm going to start by the outset by going through some of the things which the government website has said today. And the government website says that the UK will go further to protect kids with world-leading additional restrictions on harmful features online, such as live streaming and strangers communicating with children. Government action shows clear choice to side with families over tech companies to put power back in parents' hands and give kids the childhood they deserve. And there's a lot to unpack in those two brief paragraphs. Firstly, world-leading additional restrictions raises concerns over how tried and tested some of these restrictions are, and what impact will it have on individuals, not just as children, but as they grow up as well. But I will cover much of these questions which the government raises will be covered throughout this video. Also, I'm just going to tackle the latter bit of the government's second paragraph I've included here, which is the bit of give kids the childhood they deserve. So, firstly, I would question Why do we need to give kids the childhood they deserve? Haven't they been having it already? If not, why not? And this is where we get interesting. Most of the things which, okay, I'm 21 at time of recording. I'm going to be quite honest with you. At the time, my parents, grandparents, and all of them were my age and younger. There was lots to do as children. The world was arguably a safer, cheaper place. However, in today's modern society, much of the stuff which was used to be there for children has gone away, whether that's because of the streets no longer being as safe for a range of different factors. It may be because some children, like myself for most of my life, living in the countryside where not a lot takes place, and things like driving are not always easy due to the financial constraints of many children. And most importantly, I think it's government spending cuts. If government did not cut so much expenditure, then maybe there would be more stuff for children to do, like youth clubs, for instance, or more initiatives to give children the childhood they deserve. However, funding has not been put in place, and the government have only been reducing funding more and more in all the public services, including services specific for children. So that raises some concerns to start with. And I will come back to that point again a bit later in a similar fashion. Some of the key questions which have been asked, according to statistics today, the day of the announcement, has been: when does the social media ban start, UK? When will the social media ban happen in the UK? When does the social media ban start in the UK? Social media ban 16 under 16 UK, when will it start? When is the under 16 social media ban? When is social media getting banned for under 16s in the UK? When is social media getting banned? Has social media been banned for under 16s in the UK? Not yet, but it will be. And so on and so forth, like that, including some: when does social media ban start? When does social media ban start, UK? And so on. So, to answer this question, I am going to go back to some of what the government has said. They have called this action, banning social media for under 16s, as decisive action banned by 9 in 10 parents. It is expected to be brought to Parliament before Christmas, with protections expected to come into force in spring 2027. So the key answer to when does the social media ban start in the UK, it will be spring 2027. However, that is subject to a load of ifs, because this will have to go through Parliament to become an Act of Parliament. And Acts of Parliament have to go through a number of different stages. If you keep up with the news, you may have come across slash heard about the assisted dying bill, which failed to make it through the House of Lords earlier this year, which is a great disappointment, but that's a topic for another day. So you can see that these things can either be very quick or very long, depending on what the consensus is amongst all of the politicians. So, for instance, it has to go through their House of Commons first. So It needs to go through a first reading, second reading, committee stage, review stage, third reading. Then it goes to the House of Lords, the same kind of process. It may then travel back between the House of Commons and the House of Lords before going up to the King for royal assent, before then being um, enforced, i.e. the statute having force. So it's not going to be coming into play until spring 27, which I would interpret that as any time between probably February to May, June time. I will now go on to read some of the government's consultation document, which was called Growing Up in the Online World, where the government have said social media is a significant element of where children spend their time online, and many children believe that social media adds real value to their lives. The evidence base is still evolving, but we know that by the time they reach secondary school, children's use of social media is almost universal. Despite many platforms setting a minimum age of 13, over 81% of 10 to 12-year-olds say they use at least one social media app or site. As children grow older, their use increases, and by mid-teens, social media use is firmly embedded in their daily lives. It can help children stay connected with friends and family, maintain relationships when they can't meet in person, and find spaces where they feel understood. That part was very much the government acknowledging some of the positives of social media, and much of that is knowledge which forms my own academic arguments as well, especially the point on when you cannot meet individuals in person, which can be for a variety of different reasons. However, they go on to say that examples of children using online services to play, be creative, and connect with others include posting artwork or digital designs on Instagram, sharing short dance or music clips on TikTok, uploading gaming content or DIY crafts on YouTube, video chatting with grandparents using WhatsApp, recording original songs and sharing them on SoundCloud, designing custom worlds in Minecraft and posting walkthroughs, and learning languages through children's versions of apps like Duolingo ABC. As you can see, that's a large variety of different platforms which are mentioned there. And so, although this isn't talking about the ban as of yet and more examples of how children use these services, it prevents it portrays the picture that any ban will be quite extensive, which is something, in my view, to potentially be concerned about. The government go on to say that circumvention of age limits in shaping our new approach, we must consider how to deal with circumvention methods. Most children are technologically savvy and are likely to be aware of possible technical and non-technical ways to bypass new rules or regulate or restrictions. So this is a good point because, in my view, children will find a way to go around these regulations, which are proposed to be put in place. And so I will finish this paragraph in just a moment, but do we have the resources we need to actually make this legislation work? Because if we are not able to enforce it, then what's the point? Especially when children, as it says, will be able to find ways to circumvent the rules and restrictions, and there will always be new rules and restrictions coming up, and VPNs are one popular method of doing that. I should also mention at this stage that when I say children, I take the definition found in the Children Act of 1989, which is any individual below the age of 18. So children is anyone from those just born to those up to the age of 18. But going back to the government documentation, the consultation document, they say we need to find solutions that are robust. At the same time, our approach must be proportionate and it should not inadvertently restrict children's access to beneficial online content, nor restrict the legitimate and lawful use by adults of tools such as virtual private networks, VPNs, or similar private network technologies. It goes on to say that VPN usage more than doubled in the UK following highly effective age assurance requirements becoming mandatory, rising from about 650,000 daily users before the 25th of July 2025 and peaking at over 1.4 million users in mid-August 2025. This has gradually declined to around 98,000, 98,000 roughly users by the end of 2025. Due to the nature of VPNs, it is impossible to know how many of these users were children. However, early evidence does not suggest a peak in VPN use was driven by children seeking to bypass age assurance processes. There are many reasons that children may wish to use a VPN, but the main reason, as with adults, is to access the privacy and data protection benefits that VPNs offer. For example, VPNs can offer enhanced data protection when connected to public Wi-Fi and can add an extra level of security when accessing online banking. And so that essentially means that they are, to my understanding, not taking any steps to limit or prevent VPN use, which can only be seen as an appropriate decision not to take action because VPNs are a very incredibly important tool which we have in the current age where the problems of scams, viruses, and all of that kind of stuff are only getting worse and worse, and where such privacy, which and data protection benefits which VPNs offer are becoming more and more essential. The report, though, goes on to say that children will be given back their childhoods thanks to government action to ban social media platforms from offering services to under 16s with less time for scrolling and more time for play. The plans will set a new normal for future generations, kickstarting a cultural shift and driving forward the government's fight to give every child the best start in life. Now, loads of points to examine here. Firstly, I'm going to start at the end. Give every child the best start in life. In order to do that, the government need to invest more money in the services which help give children the best start in life. This means better funding the education system, the public education system. So all schools, colleges, sixth forms, daycares, whatnot, they all need significantly more funding. But also, it doesn't stop for children. Young adults should also have a right to the best start in life. And this covers things like university and qualifying for high performance, high professional roles. And so more funding needs to be provided for such roles. And I would argue that things such as the student loan should be abolished, but I bet that will not be discussed at any point anytime soon, at least not by this current government. Then it says that banning social media will result in under 16s having less time for scrolling and more time for play. On that note of play and scrolling, I'll take it as a whole actually. Again, councils have been given reduced funding, meaning play parks, for instance, have not always been kept in good condition. And I know when I was in my latter years of education, compulsory education, sixth form, GCSEs and all that, my local play park was often had bits of equipment closed off unusable due to it being damaged, and the local parish council or whatever it was not having the money to amend it. And again, it all comes down to money. And this is similar with much of the policy which the government has been proposing and enacting during its course in government. It wants to do X, Y, and Z, but more often than not, it does not want to put in the resources, i.e., the money and the funding, which is essential to make their plans work. And so, I suppose what I'm getting at is, with the absence of a suitable alternative, where does that leave children? My theory is that it's only going to make current situations significantly worse. There's obviously those children, um, like myself, who I was one of those, who will use their time productively, i.e., they will work hard for exams, study hard, and will engage in academia and limit their fair use. Good for them. However, there will be others who don't take such a proactive approach. And we've seen that already without any legislation. Also, backtracking just a second, if people are not able to scroll on social media, what's the bet that they will be able to find ways to get their hands on things like vapes again, despite what the law says, and doing that instead as a way to pass time. Back to the point I was getting at. If individuals don't have suitable alternatives in place, they will likely go looking for suitable alternatives. And schools don't have the funding or the staff or the resources, nor the training probably, to discipline students in the correct way, which has led to this downward spiral in terms of the matters I'm about to mention. But my fear is that by taking away social media, are we likely to see an increase in drug use? Class A, Class B, cannabis, cocaine, whatever else. Are we likely to see an increase in county lines, particularly with the money element? And if so, how can we restrict this, prevent this? If they take away, but they are taking away social media, but if children are left with time on their hands without enough being put in place to keep children busy and entertained, will we have an increase in gang membership, gang violence, crime in general, juvenile delinquency, etc.? These have all historically been an issue at some point in time, and many of these issues are only becoming apparent now after the last few years, and I only envisage it getting worse and worse. And so one must ask oneself, are we going to see more delinquency, more crime from a younger audience? If so, that is deeply problematic and something which must be looked into, ideally before this legislation comes in place. But if I am to judge appropriately, I would guess that maybe not. they will not mitigate against these risks before enacting this legislation because the current Labour government may appear to be quite short-sighted, which is not a good trait to have when considering such a dramatic change like the social media ban for under 16s. So the next point goes on to what does the social media ban include, and is YouTube included in the social media ban, and so on and so forth. So as I was saying, this problem with the social media ban has the potential to lead to an increase in criminal and deviant behaviour. And there's been issues with this for quite a while, in my opinion, and not enough being done. And so this is a deeply problematic worry for legal academics, aspiring barristers like myself. And here's a interesting thought as well. Social media ban versus gaming. What is the difference? And this also very much leads to what social media is actually being banned. And that is the topic of the next section of my opinions. So, key search terms which have been used in this area include social media ban versus gaming. What does the social media ban include? Is YouTube included in the social media ban? Does the social media ban include YouTube? Will YouTube be banned in UK from the 16? Is WhatsApp part of the social media ban? Is WhatsApp even classed as social media? Is WhatsApp included in the social media ban? What apps will be banned? What apps are being banned? Social media ban list. YouTube Kids. So as you can probably tell, there's been a lack of information at this point from the government, and they have been very slow at providing us all of the facts. And although we have a bit more information than we did when the ban was first announced, this is still not all the information which we would like. For instance, there is no definition, at least no definition which I can find in legislation, which actually looks at what is social media, what is the definition of social media. And if we cannot find the definition of social media, what is included and what is not included. And this is where lawyers are particularly interested because law is very much about interpreting statutes, written words, written writing, and lawyers often have to decide what different words mean. And judges, well, ju lawyers have to decide, have to argue for a specific meaning, and judges must then decide what the words in the legislation mean, having regard to statutory interpretation law. So there's things like the literal rule, the golden rule, and the mischief rule, but that is a topic for another day. And so it raises the question, what is social media legally? And only when we have a legal definition of social media can we have certainty over exactly what is to be banned under this social media ban for under 16s. Furthermore, as I've mentioned, we have not received any complete list in terms of what social media platforms are actually being banned. And so that leaves a load of questions unanswered, which is again very problematic. And worst case scenario, it's going to be a matter of waiting and seeing. And in that worst case scenario, none of these questions may be defined in any legislation, meaning we must wait for cases concerning these matters coming before the courts and for the courts to decide these definitions themselves. So, an interesting point is, will YouTube be banned? In my view, if YouTube is banned, that could be very problematic for a number of reasons, not least because of the educational value of YouTube. I will mention that a bit later. But if YouTube is banned, how about YouTube Kids? How different is YouTube Kids to the normal YouTube platform? If YouTube is banned, will YouTube Kids be still allowed? If YouTube Kids is still allowed, what restrictions or regulations will creators like myself have to follow in order for our videos to be accessible for those under the age of 16? And I will say this here, that now that we have this news, I will be doing as much as I can in my power to ensure as much of my content as possible, future content and whatnot, and loads of my legal explanations, etc., are available for those of all the different age groups, because it is vitally important that the public are educated in the law, and that public and everyone of every age understands what the law is, why it's that way, and how it's actually interpreted in practice. And so, if YouTube is to be banned, like I think it's going to be from what I've seen already, then I will do all I can to make sure my content is visible to as many people of as wide of an age group as possible. And I will create dedicated content for those individuals if it comes to it, because this is important stuff and I care deeply about public legal education. I do still have a number of pages to continue reading, but I think I'm going to end the video here actually and do a two-part video. So part one is this video, then part two will be the rest, ending with some of my own opinions and views. At least that time, at least then I don't have to do two very long videos, and it breaks it down just a bit. So with that in mind, please do subscribe to the Law with Charlie YouTube channel and even my podcast so you don't miss any future content like this. And please do leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions or even your thoughts. I do try my very, very best to respond to all the comments I get. And so far, I'm pretty sure I've got a 100% success rate at this time, and I am keen to keep it that way. Um, Again, like it. By liking it, you'll show me that you like this content, you want more of this content, and it will motivate me to do more of this content. So remember the three things: like, comment, and subscribe. I hope this video has been informative so far, and I look forward to seeing you in the next part of this video, where I continue the discussion from where we've left off, i.e., what social media is to be included in the social media ban for under 16s in the United Kingdom. I look forward to talking to you in more detail about this next time. Goodbye.